Order the document to lie on the table. For the statement and communications, the chair recognizes the honorable member for Marco City.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, there are numerous events leading up to the establishment of majority rule that contributed mightily to the eventual milestone being reached and subsequently etched in law. The backdrop against which these events unfolded must, however, be reframed in a modern Bahamas. In short, Madam Speaker, the decades of struggle was engaged in by both black and white Bahamians and others from other jurisdictions. It was engaged in by poor and rich, PLPs and others, including those that form the Free National Movement, by young and old Bahamians alike. The achievement of majority rule was a momentous historical event, but it was also an aspirational event. There was then and now an expectation that this achievement would deepen our democracy, increase citizens' participation in governance, and empower our people regardless of their socio-economic status. The fact is, the Burma Road riots on June 1st, 1942 was not the start, but a continuation of rebellion against a pattern of economic racism that saw the majority of Bahamians disadvantaged in the workplace by developers who were allowed to bring in labor from elsewhere, especially Cuba and the United States. These developers, Madam Speaker, and their facilitators in the government system permitted foreign labor access to work that Bahamians were well capable of doing and at better wages. This was the state of affairs, Madam Speaker, for decades. And the reversal of this national tragedy required the political and economic change our people fought for. Against this backdrop, it can be said that the march toward majority rule required passing the checkpoint, the milestone of equal pay for equal labor. Our struggle for majority rule was greatly assisted by the women suffrage movement in the Bahamas, wherein women in the Bahamas, inspired not only by the international movement for women's empowerment, but also by the Burma Road Rise, by the labor movement and the 1958 general strike, positioned women to work extremely hard, along with others, to throw off the shackles of disenfranchisement and demanded their rights to vote in general elections. And so, as we celebrate majority rule, we also celebrate that great alliance of Bahamian suffragettes, presided over by Mary Ingram and freedom fighters such as Georgiana Simonette, Eugenia Lockhart, Althea Mortimer, Alberta Isaacs, Dame Dr. Doris Johnson, Grace Wilson, Mildred Moxie, Ethel Kemp, Gladys Bailey, Una Prosper Hasty, Veronica Lockmore, Nora Hanna, Marge Brown, and others. These women and their allies, propelled by the civil rights awakening, saw their rights as Bahamians being denied and determined that they would work assiduously to rectify this historical wrong. Both in 1961 and manifested in 1962, the meaningful change came. The march to majority rule demanded that we pass that milestone, that important milestone where every citizen got a chance to have their say. One vote for each man and each woman alike. Another major plank in this bridge to majority rule was the formation of the country's first political party, the Progressive Liberal Party. In August 1953, publisher, real estate broker, and member of the House of Assembly for Cat Island, William Cartwright, reportedly invited to the first meeting on Bay Street and Frederick Street the following men: the Honorable Charles Rodriguez, Henry Milton Taylor, Cyril St. John Stevenson, Samuel Carey, Holly Brown, Clement Pinder, F.W. Russell, and others. I'm advised, Madam Speaker, that white and black folks facilitated the formation of the PLP, contrary to some revisionists who placed these historical facts in a context that allowed them to suck every bit of credit they can get out of it today. Nevertheless, the PLP was designed to represent all that was opposed to unfair privilege and the wealth and power privilege afforded the Bay Street Boys and their facilitators. The view then was that someone must stand up against those things that were absolutely wrong in our national life. Madam Speaker, another pivotal event in the march to majority rule was the general strike of 1958, which brought the capital to a virtual standstill as nearly every worker participated in a peaceful withdrawal of their labor. This led, Madam Speaker, to the Trade Union and, of course, the Industrial Conciliation Act and the setting up of a labor department. In the context of our discussion today, it is vital to note that it was in 1958, Madam Speaker, that Allen Lennox Boyd, Secretary of State, this is among the others, for the colonies, ordered the first constitutional steps to be taken toward majority rule. The voting franchise was extended to all males, whether they were landowners or not. The once unlimited plural vote was ordered to be reduced to 2, and the abolition of the company vote was abolished. It was ordered. The joining picked up momentum, Madam Speaker, with the enfranchisement of women and the events of Black Tuesday, ending in the election result on January 10, 1967, majority rule. While the PLP and the oligarch-backed UBP was tied with 18 seats apiece, it was the weight of Labor Representative Sir Randall Fox, and as we talk about Sir Randall, we also pay tribute to Sir Alvin Brannan, who both tossed their support behind the Progressive Liberal Party and allowed the PLP to form the country's first ever Black-led government. Sir Randall Fox proved that one voice can make a difference. While majority rule was ushered in really by a collective, the reality is, Madam Speaker, it was designed in many ways to inspire the next generation. We in church right now, my brother. Madam Speaker, majority rule provides Bahamians with an opportunity to make fundamental adjustments in our Constitution, as was desired then, in our political, and social, and cultural, and economic life. The reality is that in the modern Bahamas, persons often question to what extent does the majority actually influence the rule in this country. This question, Madam Speaker, is rooted in the day-to-day experience of ordinary Bahamians. There are still some and new old oligarchies whose backs are not yet broken. Instead, some of these white and black groups continue to carve out significant portions of our patrimony for themselves to the detriment of new entrepreneurs. When Bahamians look around the modern Bahamas, it is sometimes difficult to see how it could be true that the majority of our citizens are determining our course and benefiting from our wealth. Unemployment last year sat at more than 13.2%, up from 2017, when it was just under 10%. The gross national income per capita in the Bahamas from 2011 to 2021 have remained more or less stagnant around 28,000 per year. Far too often, if we meet more often, we could talk about a lot more issues. Far too often, many Bahamians seek access to agriculture and agriculture land, crown land for entrepreneurial pursuits, and are rebuffed or stalled, while the wealthy or immigrants and some lawless Bahamians occupy land illegally with too little consequences. Majority Rule Day marks a pivotal step in our collective journey to lock in the universal value of one person, one vote, which gives us a chance to choose a group of men and women who hold on to national power in trust for the masses. Daily, we must exercise our authority to return this power to the people through legislation, policies, programs, and projects, Madam Speaker. What we must now do is continue to form the mechanisms that transform this public advocacy into policies and laws where appropriate. The labor movement and civil society, together and separately, have led in this area and are to be applauded for their work and to advance our national culture. Madam Speaker, stakeholders must constantly communicate with each other to harness the power that collective action delivers. This is where the government must step in and lead. The majority must be a check on the elected and the appointed so that we do not abuse this power and privilege of trust. One voice can make a difference. It is in this spirit that I encourage myself and our side and all concerned to remember the milestones of Majority Rule. January 10th captures a day, but Majority Rule was and is a journey for all of us. Majority Rule is not a static event in history. Majority Rule is an ever-evolving, ongoing work that we as a nation are engaged in together. And we must all participate and give the best of ourselves. And to paraphrase Lerone Bennett, let us erase the historical biases without introducing new biases. Let us each rededicate ourselves to making the Bahamas the best country it can be. Happy Majority Rule.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Order that the document be brought up.